So something I do on a lot of vehicles, because I tow a lot of trailers, is adding a trailer harness and the wiring and the breakers and fuses and trailer brake controller and everything to control the trailer. Sounds like a lot to some people. It's really not. I'm going to run you through the process on this 2002 Toyota Sequoia, and we'll see how basically simplified it really is. So let's get to it. So I've got this kit here which can be purchased online. I don't know, it's a standard kit, comes with a plug, and well, this brake controller came off another vehicle. I know it works, so we can use it. But it comes with, standard mounting brackets and basically all the wiring connectors and everything you need, but I'm not sure if we're going to be using these because I don't like this style butt splice, but we will see. It even comes with a little test light doohickey that, if you're really doing this from scratch. Scotch lock connectors, don't ever use those. All the hardware and everything. So it looks like, according to the directions, you install this, and one of these plugs goes into the existing plug on the vehicle. I think this has like the base towing package. Let's take a look. This has a trailer hitch and looks like the factory 4-pin. We're gonna have to clean that out. I'm sure that'll be fine. Maybe not. We'll test that before we use it. But you plug this into and you plug this new connector into here, and then there's another pigtail that you can use for your new 4-pin connector if you need to tow that kind of trailer. So some of this stuff is going to go under the hood, some goes in the cabin, trailer brake controller specifically. Some goes mounted back by the trailer hitch, and then we have wires that we have to run the length of the vehicle. Now the existing light harness is there. That's for the lights, but we need brake and auxiliary power for the trailer hitch, which we're going to add. So we're going to have to run some wires underneath the length of the vehicle and into the cabin. I think maybe we can run them through this thing right here where everybody seems to be running their wires. So that, just slip them around the boot, around where those other wires go. We want to run them in there. As far as mounting the circuit breakers and everything, I don't know, might mount some up here. I'm seeing some screw holes and things from maybe brackets that are missing or weren't there or something, but seems like a good place to mount it if we need to. I don't know where the customer wants the brake controller mounted, but generally I sit in the vehicle and I kind of see, well, what opportunities do we have? I don't know. I mean, you can mount it. I might be able to mount it down here. This might be a good location, kind of this cutout. The only thing we stand to block is this temperature sensor here, but we're not really going to be blocking it. I think this might be a good location. We'll have to take a look at that. I don't know what we have to screw into there, or there's one screw hole. Yeah, we might be able to screw to these panels. Maybe just possibly. That will work, I think. So they give you this wiring harness to run between the front and the back of the vehicle to get your brake and battery power. Now, you don't have to run hot power directly to your trailer hitch plug, but it's a good idea. So we got ground here, brake. Don't know what that is. Extra yellow wire, not sure. And this is probably your auxiliary power, but we can check that with a meter on the pin out there. Or it'll tell us here. Well, it doesn't tell us. This is very basic. Anyway, the wires you run front to back in your vehicle, you want to be rather large, because the bigger trailers you pull are going to draw a lot of power. I mean, they might draw 7 or 8 or 9 amps per brake or per axle, depending, but it all depends on the size of the trailer you're pulling. This trailer here, for example, only has one axle with brakes on it. The rear axle doesn't. That trailer over there has brakes on both axles. This one is going to draw, I think these are bigger brakes too, but this is going to draw more than double what this trailer will, even though they're roughly the same size trailer. So you got to look at that amperage wise and make sure you're allowing for, you know, expansion and high amperage down the road. By expansion, I mean if you want to pull a bigger trailer, you know, you don't have to go through and pull all your wiring and upgrade. You don't want that to be your weak point when you run it. This is stranded. Looks like they gave us a nice wire assembly here to wire coil around to the back. Well, I give you step-by-step directions, which I'm not sure if we need or not, but I will use to mount the fuses. I guess the first step is we're gonna run this wire under the vehicle. All right, I just laid it out real quick under the vehicle. I'm gonna go under there, look for the best place to run it inside the frame rail, and just kind of wire tie it in place, and I'll pull it up through the engine compartment here. Make sure you have enough slack coming out both ends, you know, just in case. But let's take a look. All right, so anytime you got cross members like this here, you know, don't go under the cross member, you know, go over it. So I think if we just roughly follow these fuel lines here, you know, electricity and fuel, what could go wrong with that? I'm just kidding. But okay, so I'm gonna run it along there and then, you know, up. These are boxed frame rails, which is good, but you can't run inside of them, so you don't want to run on top of them in case, you know, pinching hazards and things like that from, you know, frame flexing. You really don't want to run outside of them, even though this has lots of lines run all over here, but I guess that's e-brake. Anyway, you know, we're going to run over obstructions and probably zip tie to things like the fuel lines, I guess, or the fuel line clips, because we don't have a lot of options here. So I'm just gonna run that. Let's see what we wind up with. All right, so we got it running roughly up there and then up into the engine compartment, which I'll go and up there when I tie it off and make sure it's clear of any moving parts like the steering gear and anything like that. But let's continue running this to the back here. Gotta figure out how to run it around all these brackets and moving parts and stuff. Okay, so we brought this up inside the engine compartment and I put 2 circuit breakers in here. Ordinarily I fuse the power to the brake controller, but they say to use a circuit breaker, so all right, we'll do that. They're saying use the white one for the brake control, so the black is going to go right to one of these circuit breakers, and the other end of the circuit breaker is going to go right to the battery. And the white wire is going to go into the engine compartment. So we will do that. So I have my 2 circuit breakers mounted up here. One is for the auxiliary power in the trailer hitch, and the other is for the brake controller itself. I've got a jumper that I'm going to run the battery power across with. You could run 2 separate lines. Oh, I ran 3 wires through the firewall. I got the power over here. I got the ground connected right to the end of the battery ground lead. So I've got 3 wires going through the firewall. Brake controller, that's the blue one. Ground white and power red. So wire these directly into our brake controller. Most brake controllers have a timeout feature, which is why you can wire them directly to the battery. This one does. We've double checked that. Well, we knew it was because the truck it came out of. Mounted the brake controller bracket there, and now I have to find the one remaining wire, which is the output from the brake pedal. When you press the brake pedal, it passes power through to the brake light circuit. So we have to tie into that so it activates the brake controller. It should be down here somewhere. So basically I've got to pull the plug, put my meter on, and find which one is live all the time, because your brake pedal's live all the time, and then use the other lead coming out of the brake pedal. So I'm going to do that. Well, with I guess one of these Scotch lock connectors that I hate so much, Where did I put them? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I've got some here. I hate these things. You just put them on the wire and crimp them. This metal thing digs into the wire, and they fail so often, and they're horrible. But in this case, I don't really want to hack up the harness if at all possible, so that's what we're going to do, and that's what it tells you to do. So that's what I'm doing. So just got to find the wire coming out of the brake pedal that doesn't have power except when the pedal's pushed. So I've got this button back up. I didn't film it because, well, I was very angry at the vehicle manufacturers during this segment because to access the brake switch, there's 4 wires coming off of it. So I found the one of the 4 with my meter that when you press the brake pedal, it output 12 volts. But there was only about this much, maybe an inch of wire exposed between the switch and the connector that I could get a splice in there. And it was very difficult to snake up in there, and I couldn't film it anyway because my camera wouldn't fit up in there. It's way up there. If you're doing this on a Sequoia, well, just have somebody else do it because it is a pain. Anyway, I got that wire connected, and then I had my 4 wires for the unit, and I mounted it over here, of course, where I said I was going to, and it works really good. It's not in your knee space or anything. That's a nice little section there to mount it. And back here, putting on the plug was fairly straightforward. It just I cleaned out these connectors, and there's just this kit comes with a plug. You just plug right into the vehicle circuit, and then I spliced in the 2 crimps with the power and the brake, and that's pretty much all there is to it. I'll have to hook it up to test it out, so that'll say something other than normal. This one happens to say C for connected, and then of course it'll display a number. And of course you can test your lights, headlights, lights, lights. Basically, you know, go around, test all your lights. You don't actually have to test your brake lights because they're activated on the same turn signal circuit. So if the turn signal works, then your brake lights work, basically. That turn signal isn't working. I gotta test that turn signal circuit. And then of course, so when you step on your brake, you should see, you know, obviously your brake controller is going to vary between manufacturer, but you know, you should see a response, and it should at very least register that it's connected. So troubleshoot that turn signal circuit. Everything else with the brake controller works though. That's pretty much all there is to the brake controller. Okay, let's figure that out. There we go. Fixed that turn signal. It was one of the connectors in the factory plug, factory 4-pin, was corroded. So just cleaned it out with a brush, and now she works. So when I do my own vehicles, I usually wire the brake controller into a switched ignition circuit for power because I don't like weird drains on my system. Almost every brake controller made today has a timeout function that after like 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever of inactivity, it'll shut off. Well, when I'm doing other people's vehicles, I wire it according to whatever the directions of the factory say. So this one is wired into the battery all the time, and this one has a 15-minute timeout. You can see that it's inactive because it's got the 2 dots, nothing's connected. So, you know, they don't recommend you do a switched ignition circuit, and I don't know if that's because if your vehicle shuts off when you're driving it, that they want your trailer brakes to stay active or something. I don't know. But if you just, you know, pay attention and you're a decent driver, you don't have to worry about that. So anyway, this isn't my vehicle, so I wired it the way the factory says, so it's active all the time. Now, ordinarily these crimp butt connectors they give you are not the shrink kind, and these aren't, so you can't really heat shrink them. I don't really like that, but I mean, that's the way it is, and that's the way they tell you to do them. I should probably tape them up or something, but I mean, they don't tell you to, so I don't know. I mean, I'm doing this one according to the directions, and you know, I guess we'll see how it holds up and lasts and whatever, but yeah, that's not ideal. Usually you want the heat shrink type where you apply heat and it shrinks and seals the connector. I don't know why they don't give you that kind, but they don't, so that's the way it is on that. So I apologize for not showing the actual, you know, splicing into the brake connector, but the basics are the same on every vehicle. Find the brake pedal, find the wire that outputs 12 volts. When you press the pedal, whichever wire that is, whether it has 2 wires, 4 wires, whatever, find that one wire with your meter, or they give you a test light in this package, but I always use a meter, and then that's the one you tie into, and that's pretty much it for that. This one, I mean, you really got to lay on your head and dig in there. I mean, it's very little room. I could barely get the pliers in there to squeeze the crimp connector, the Scotch lock connector that I hate so much. And ordinarily I wouldn't use a Scotch lock, but even if I cut the wire, the remaining stubs are going to be so short that I wouldn't be able to splice to them. I'd have to extend them, and it would be a whole mess in there. So in this case, it was easier just to use the Scotch lock, and well, it'll work. So that's just a very, very, very quick rundown of putting in a trailer wire harness and all the stuff and brake controller that's necessary for one of these. Pretty much the same for any vehicle that isn't equipped with it, with the difference being that this had a ready to go 4-way connector, and I didn't have to splice into the lights or anything on this end, so it was fairly simple. Wasn't really much to show you down there, so, but all that's the same. Most modern vehicles they'll come with like a harness that you can pull one of the tail lights and splice in there and run the harness down to your trailer brake connector. So it's not unusual to have that anyway. You just got to spend a little bit more money for it if you want to do it the easy way. Otherwise, you can splice in here and run your own wires, or splice into the harness down under the car or frame rail if you can find it. So I don't know if this will help anyone. Show you the difficulty or ease, I don't know, depending on your skill level, putting one of these on the Sequoia of this era. The Toyota Tundra is probably roughly the same, because they're a lot the same platform, especially probably as far as brake switches and things go. So I don't know if this helps anyone, but I mean, that is why I do videos. So anyway, as always, feel free to like, subscribe, comment, tell me what I did wrong down below, and as always, thanks for watching.